I have a lot to say and not much time to say it. There's an old proverb. There was never a good knife made of bad steel. Very true. Very, very true. Today we're talking about steel on Trigger Talk. And we're going to go over some terms, some elements, some types of steel, what I like, what I don't like. Diving in. I need to quit saying diving in. That's the second video recently I've said in. Anyway. Alloy. An alloy is a material that is dissolved in another metal in a solid solution. A material that results when two or more elements combine in a solid solution. Okay? Very important to know because most of the steels are alloys and they're combinations. So, heat treating is a controlled heating and cooling process to prescribe temperatures and limits for the use and purpose of changing the physical properties and the behaviors of the metal. Okay, which leads us into austenitizing. The basic steel structure state in which an alloy is uniformly dissolved into iron. And what happens when you dissolve everything down, mix it together, and then cool it? Martensite happens, and that is a very hard and brittle steel with a distorted body-centered tetragon crystalline structure. Okay, so that's going to be super hard. Crystals are one of the hardest formations in nature, and martensite is essentially crystals in your steel that make it super hard. Now, before I go much further, I'm going to talk real quick about hardness first off, which is the resistance of a steel to deformation or penetration, analogous to strength. Okay, so provided by the elements of carbon, chromium, cobalt, molybdenum, nitrogen, and phosphorus. These elements combine to give a steel a hardness, which is also going to, retain its edge. Conversely to hardness, you have toughness. Okay, toughness is the ability to resist shock or impact. So throwing knives, something like that, you're going to want a knife that's super tough rather than something hard. Usually chromium will be the main element in a steel that will give it good toughness. Like a machete is an example of a tough blade because it can flex upon impact, or a katana, which is why they do tempering, another term here, a slow, steady heating of the martensite material to just below recrystallization temperature, followed by a controlled, consistent cooling phase for the purpose of slightly softening the steel, precipitating the carbides, and relieving stress. So that's going to allow the blade to flex upon impact and not shatter as an extremely hard blade would. So hardenability is basically ability for the steel to be treated by a heat treating process, usually with the elements of manganese, molybdenum, and tungsten. So, how do we test this? With what's called Rockwell. A measurement of steel hardness based on the depth of penetration of a small diamond cone pressed into a steel under a constant load. Most knives that you carry in your pocket are going to be anywhere from 54 to 58 strength Rockwell, depending on who's making them and what kind of steels you have. So, let's see, we're already at 4:30. Jeez, I need to hurry up. Wish I had more time to do these, and also I tend to lose people because, attention spans and whatnot. So, getting super geeky here. Some elements that are in steel. Carbon, chromium, cobalt, copper, manganese, molybdenum, nickel, niobium, columbium, nitrogen, phosphorus, silicon, sulfur, tungsten, and vanadium. Each of those properties does something different, and different blade steels use each of those elements in different measures to come out with a different result. So if you want a blade that's gonna just really retain its edge well and be super sharp, then usually you're going to see a lot of carbon in that blade. If you want something that's just going to have a hard edge and last a long time, but it's super hard to sharpen and it has really good corrosion resistance, then there's going to be a lot of chromium in there. The added copper adds corrosion resistance. Cobalt adds strength and hardness. And it's really useful when you're quenching in high temperatures because it intensifies the individual effects of other elements in more complex steels. So it's kind of used like a catalyst during the austenitization process. So nickel also adds strength and toughness. Molybdenum also. And it prevents temperatures from spiking too fast. When you add molybdenum, you can really get your alloys to really optimum temperatures, especially when you're doing powder metallurgy work. Now, powder metallurgy is a newer concept where basically they're taking alloys and atomizing them during the austenitizing process. So they're taking white hot steel pretty much and blowing it through basically a super fine, we'll call it like a paint sprayer, for lack of a better term, air blaster, paint sprayer, into a mold where it is generally quenched in liquid nitrogen, depending on what they're going for, but lots of times they'll use liquid nitrogen to quench those guys, and it comes out with a very uniform steel that has all the properties you want, and you don't lose many of those elements as you would during a conventional heat treating process. So that's why powder metallurgy has become so popular and so many big companies are using it in their high-end products. I guess I could mention off a few steels real quick, but I don't know if any of these are really going to mean anything to anybody. Very common steels that are high in carbon are like a 1095 steel, a 5160, 164 cm, 154 cm, sorry, 52 100. Those are all really high carbon steels. Steels that are super high in chromium are like the 440Bs, the 425s, the 420J2s, a lot of the 420s. Who'd have thunk it, right? D2, that's more like a tool steel type of thing. Very hard, holds an edge really well, but it's not especially corrosion resistant. LMAX is one of those super steels. It is, powder metallurgy. It just kind of does it all. And like a lot of the newer things, like ZDP 189, that's kind of another super steel that's out there. And a knife that I'm actually looking to get really soon, which is by Spyderco, who'd have thunk it, right, is called the Stretch, with an FRN handle, fiberglass reinforced nylon handle, and a ZDP 189 blade with a really cool blade geometry to it. Too bad it doesn't come with the Emerson Wave opening system, but you never can have it all, right? Anyway, we're already almost at 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and kill this guy. Thanks for those who have stuck it through to the end. I know this isn't the most exciting video in the world, but it will be informational for those who are interested in this type of content. So, I wish you all well. Talk to you soon.